Our first one is going to be Fat Electrician. Doing a Fat Files for no tax on tips. Yes. We are going to be checking this one. Is it a spicy one? Ooh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. Alright, chat. Let's see what Nick has to say on no taxing on tips.
Alright, full disclosure, this is just going to turn into unhinged yelling pretty much immediately.
Of course.
Today we're talking about not taxing tips. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, both presidential candidates have come out and said that they no longer want to tax tips. Now, is this blatantly political pandering to get votes because Nevada's a swing state and a ton of them rely on tips for income? Absolutely, okay? But unfortunately, pretty much every tax cut on the books is either pandering directly for votes or pandering to get donations to their campaign so that they can buy more votes. And while that's certainly not ideal, I thought it was cool because this is probably like the only time in my adult life that I can think of where two presidential candidates were on the same page about literally anything. And honestly, it just made sense because you've got Republicans, people on the right side of the aisle that generally speaking are just against taxes, period, of any kind. And then you've got Democrats or people on the left side of the aisle that, you know, they're more pro-taxes, but generally speaking, they want to tax richer people, not necessarily tax lower income people, like generally speaking, the people that are working for tips. And then for me, I was just excited I was going to be allowed to tip somebody that did a good job, knowing that the government wasn't going to step in like fucking Debo and take some of the money.
So y'all don't get nothing?
Nice.
Hell yeah. Got about $200, huh, Debo?
I got about $200.
Because that's absolutely ridiculous. In my mind, at least, a tip is basically a gift to that person, and you're allowed to give away like $17,000.
Wait. Chat? I have not worked for tips. I have not had a job where I work for tips. So I need some education on this. Are tips actually indeed taxed? If you are like a waiter or waitress, do they actually tax your tips? They do. So that's why when you tip, it's actually a part of the bill instead of you just leaving cash. Fuck you, government. Fuck you in the ass. You know what I mean, bench. You know what I mean. Yeah, cash you can exactly. That's what I'm saying, Drysdale. That's why it's all on the bill now instead of just leaving cash on the table. Yep.
$1,500 a year to an individual as a gift and not have it taxed. So why the fuck does the government need to tax the $5 gift that I'm giving to the kid that delivered my pizza? So I was excited. I thought for like the first time in my adult life, the Republicans and the Democrats agreed on something and it was actually going to help out normal working everyday Americans. And then I wake up and the news cycle hits and every mainstream media outlet and every economist on the planet apparently thinks that this is an awful idea and they've got the dumbest fucking reasons I've ever heard of in my entire life. And we're going to get into those right after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Rocket Money. It is pretty much your one-stop shop for all your financial needs. It helps you establish a budget, it monitors your credit, and it even lets you track your net worth. But what I use
so Nick is the moment Nick said that the news cycle said this is a bad idea, I know it's all the absolute bullshit fucking reasons. 100% because it's a fucking news service. They are pro corporation. So of course they're going to be all about tax the little guy so the big guy can make more money, so the big guy can get more tax breaks. I'm simplifying majorly, Drysdale. I'm utterly simplifying this.
Tips have functionally only actually been taxed since like 2012. Buh! Actually, tips have always been considered taxable income. Buh! Yeah, I'm aware. That's why I use the word functionally in there because, yeah, they were technically taxable income since 1913 when the income tax was first established. However, they were never actually really taxed until about 2012. And that's because you couldn't enforce it, right? Because at the end of the day, laws only matter if you can actually enforce them. And back in the 1900s, all the transactions were done in cash and you had to rely on that waiter or waitress or whoever to report the amount of tips they got to the IRS, which nobody on the face of the earth is actually going to do.
Right.
But it's still illegal, so you have to. Holy shit, I do not understand how people don't understand this concept. Okay, let me break it down for you a little bit more, all right? I live in Iowa, for example, and if I'm sitting down at dinner and somebody says, hey, will you pass the butter? And I grab some margarine instead and pass that to them, that's illegal in the state of Iowa. It is a misdemeanor to pass off margarine as butter, okay? Guess who?
Wow. That's one of those state laws that is on the books that makes no goddamn sense, but the state government has just not fucked with it because everybody just ignores it. Oh, there are hundreds and thousands of these kind of laws on the books everywhere. County, state, federal. There are hundreds and thousands of these crazy ass fucking laws that are still on the books to this fucking day. One of these days we're gonna have to watch a video about like crazy laws that are still in the books. This is like one like your mule cannot eat a fire hydrant or something like that. It is illegal for you to have for you to allow your mule to eat a fucking fire hydrant. Shit like that. Or you cannot walk on the sidewalk on a Sunday. Some absolute batshit crazy law from like the 1800s that just never been taken off the book.
Who's enforcing that law? Fucking nobody. It's illegal in Arizona to put llamas in bathtubs. It's illegal in Delaware to whisper in church, okay? None of that shit is getting enforced. Nobody cares. This is one of those times.
Ow! Christ, Jake, take it easy, man.
Now what?
Ow! Jesus Christ!
Okay. Meanwhile, at a church in Delaware, as filmed in Chicago. I mean, come on. You couldn't find video footage in Delaware and not in Chicago?
Christ! Jesus Christ!
Now, that being said, the government absolutely does not want it to be one of those times. The government wants to tax tips really, really bad, and they've got a long track record to prove it. In 1965, the IRS really tried to crack down on this when they came out and basically said, like, hey, you're required to report all of your incomes. It's taxable income, and you need to pay us taxes on it. But 1965, everybody was still paying with mostly cash, so everybody continued to just not listen. So the IRS could do literally nothing about it. So, still wanting to get that tax money, in 1982, the IRS came out and then told the employers, hey, we're going to require you to track your employees' tips, and then you report that back to us, okay? Multiple problems with this again. You're asking the employer to side with the government over their own employees, so that's probably not going to happen most of the time. And then, even if that does happen, it's still 1982. Everybody's still paying with cash, and if the employer's trying to figure out how much money and tips the employees made, they're just going to lie anyways, so it's still completely ineffective. So the IRS is just getting more and more pissed off. They realize that they really have no way to track this, which means they have no way to enforce it, which means there's people out there just giving money to other people and the government's not getting a cut, which...
The horror. The absolute horror. People are giving other people money. And the IRS ain't getting none. Where's their fainting couch? Where's the fainting couch? We need to lay these poor IRS people down. Oh my.
Absolutely infuriates them. So in 2000, they basically resort to scare tactics. They launched the Tip Alternative Reporting Agreement, which is essentially an education program for employers.
They're not paying us? Inconceivable.
You keep using this word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
And employees, letting them know how dangerous it is if they don't report their tips. Again, completely ineffective. So then they launch another program in 2002 known as the Employer Tip Reporting Compliance Agreement, which was basically the same thing all over again. And again, it is completely ineffective. And then in 2007, they get a truly diabolical idea when they come out with the Small Business.
Oh, sorry, Chad. I swallowed a little funny there.
Business Work Opportunity Act, which basically goes to the employers and says, hey, you need to start tracking all of your employees' tips, and the more tips you report of your employees, we're going to turn around and give you a tax credit so that you actually make money the more your employees report tips. Basically, they're taking the
Wait. Let me hear that again.
Employers and says, hey, you need to start tracking all of your employees' tips, and the more tips you report of your employees, we're going to turn around and give you a tax credit so that you actually make money the more your employees report tips. Basically, they're taking the...
That's fucking diabolical. Fuck you. That is goddamn diabolical. That is some dystopian shit going on right there. That's not even like bribery. That's basically what that's trying to do is they are trying to turn employers into quasi-employees of the government. That's fucking sick. Yeah. Screw over your employees, whom you need for your business to function, but we'll give you a tax break. Oh, fuck you in the ass for that one.
Employer-employee relationship and pitting them against one another over who gets to make the money. Okay, 100% government playbook 101. Take two groups of poor people, get them to fight each other instead. They'll never realize that you're the one being the asshole. Okay, makes perfect sense. They do it all the time.
I say, let them fight each other. Or we lay back, watch, have a drink, play some wagers. Hey!
So this is where reporting on tips did start to go up quite a bit because some employers were in fact willing to sell out their employees. However, a lot of them still weren't willing to do that. So then in 2012, the IRS finally came out with the Attributed Tip Income Program, which is basically the IRS saying, hey, it's 2012. Most people are paying with a debit or credit card, some electronic form of payment, which means that you now have a digital record of them receiving that money. And we're going to legally require you as the employer to report that information to us.
Gotcha.
And this is where tips really functionally started to be taxed, because even in modern times, if you tip with cash, they can just put that in their pocket and nobody really knows. But the vast majority of people tip on the receipt with their debit or credit card, and now there's an electronic paper trail, and they have to end up reporting that to the IRS, and then they do have to pay taxes on it.
Thanks, Obama.
So look, I'm not a tax expert. I'm not an economist. I'm an electrician that just likes to point out obvious shit. So I figured we've only functionally been taxing tips since like 2007 to 2012, however you want to look at it. I remember when I was a waiter in 2008 in high school, and my boss had to pull me aside and be like, hey, just so you know, our company's going to start reporting all the electronic tips to the IRS. So you're going to have to pay taxes on that on the end of the year. Just be aware, because I worked for a major chain restaurant and they were willing to sell us down the river. So I just figured like we've only been taxing this thing for 10 years. In reality, what's it gonna hurt to just not tax these guys, right? Because if I end up ordering a pizza during a snowstorm and some 19...
Oh, and oh god, how do I say that? Kendrick's Lime Dick? Thank you for the follow?
Year-old kid in a clapped-out Camry comes through. I want to be able to give him a $20 bill in cash as a thank you and not have the government be involved, right? I just want the authority and the agency in my life to be able to do nice things for random strangers and not have the government demand a cut. That's all I want.
Slim, okay. What did I say? Oh. You're right. I'm sorry, Slim. Okay. Kendrick Slim Dick. Okay. Sorry.
I'm wrong, because every single mainstream media outlet started putting out news articles and videos explaining in detail why this is a horrible fucking idea, and all of the economists agree. And then you actually read the articles or you watch the interviews with economists, and they have the dumbest...
Oop.
Cheer 100 always tip in cash.
I was kind of waiting for a pause in his rant to say this, Bobcat. Some places you can't. Because some employers will not allow their employees to accept cash tips. They will not. There are some employers, probably from like major chains, major corporation chains, that I do not think will allow your employees to accept cash tips. Yeah. Hell, I mean, there are companies that are not like tip based. The place I worked at, the last job that I worked at, on occasion I would have, yeah, and incognito. I was kind of going in that direction, not with fast food, but
Well, it's a
the
good
place
thing I don't tip. I give gifts.
Aw, that's sweet of you, Rygat. The last place that I worked at, it was not a tip-based service. Bearing in mind, it was retail and customer service based. It was where I was fixing computers and shit. Sometimes a customer, usually an older customer, if I was able to fix a problem for them very easily, and was able to avoid them having like a $100 or multi-$100 bill for something because the problem was very simple and a very easy fix, like literally just reboot the fucking computer and problem fixed. Sometimes I would get these folks that would say, here, and they would like try and pass me a $10 or $20 bill. And I would have to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't take that. And if they forced it into my hand, like if they forced it or just like left it on the counter and left, I couldn't keep it. I had to bring it to one of my managers so they could put it into the employee fund that would eventually get pooled to be used to get like the pizza party for the employees. So if a customer wanted to give me money, well, the problem is, Revan, cameras are everywhere, and these cameras were live streamed to like the head offices. So if I was caught keeping that money, my ass would get fired. Yeah, that's the problem. So if a customer wanted to give me a tip because they appreciated my efficient service and the fact that I saved them a boatload of money, I couldn't keep that tip. I had to give it to the company so they could pull it for a fucking pizza party for the employees. The employees that did not do the job that I just did. So yeah. That's why I'm saying most big businesses. Now, this does not apply to the small mom and pop businesses. Small mom and pop businesses are probably just fine with, their team accepting cash. They have no issues probably. But for the big businesses, they will not let the employees accept a cash tip. And if you are caught accepting a cash tip, you're fired. That's how they work. And you gotta remember, in all of these places, they are all wired with cameras, and all of these cameras have the feed going back to the corporation. So the chances of you getting caught are there, and if you are a low-income worker struggling to get by when there's not a whole hell of a lot of jobs available, you're not going to risk your job for a $10 tip, for a $10 cash tip. You're not going to risk it. What, Bobcat? Like, I didn't know it at the time, and the majority of employees don't realize that it cannot be legally enforced. But the fact is, like, they can still fire you, and even if it's not done legally, what are you gonna do? Get a lawyer and fight it? You, a nothing employee, is going to hire a lawyer to fight a multi-million-dollar company? No. Because that's the thing. Maybe they're doing it illegally, but you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars that you don't have to take them to court. If it's in, yeah, like Tanashi was saying, if it is not taking place in a right-to-work states. So it basically, the employee, even if it's in a right-to-work state, even if it's not in a right-to-work state, it don't fucking matter. Because the employee does not have the money to take the corporation to court and fight for, and fight if they were fired illegally. They can't. That's why the corporations will win, because they will outspend the pissant nothing employee in a heartbeat. And that's why people hate corporations, because corporations have literally stacked the deck against the average person for decades. Yeah, a couple times, Revan. A couple times. Or yeah, you grab ass. You're right. It's an at-will employee. Yeah, I'm mixing those two up. You are correct. I'm thinking at-will employee.
Fucking talking points on the planet to the point that it's actually insulting to your intelligence. So the first argument is if we don't tax tips, it's going to end up costing the government between $100 and $150 billion over the course of the next 10
I question that number. Not taxing tips is going to cost the government $100 billion over the next 10 years? I'm sorry, get me an independent forensic accountant to verify those fucking numbers. Because I do not buy for a second that taxing tips results in $100 billion. I don't buy that for a second.
10 years. So where are they going to recoup that money from, right? Because you have to go and get that money from somewhere else if we're not going to take it from the waiters and waitresses and delivery drivers.
Where do you get the revenue to offset that? Because it's also apparently going to advance the insolvency date of Social Security's retirement trust fund by over a year.
Now, at a glance, that almost sounds like a mildly coherent opinion if you don't think about it whatsoever. I mean, it's so egregious that one of two things is happening.
Hang on, my brain was just cooking there for a second. I need to hear what she said again.
Because it's also apparently going to advance the insolvency date of Social Security's retirement trust fund by over a year.
Now,
so the claim, so if I'm understanding what she just said, if we don't tax the waiters for their tips, the Social Security fund will become insolvent 1 year earlier. Yeah, I was gonna say, they're like, Social Security is already, Social Security is already ringing its death knell at this point, from what I've heard. Everything I've been hearing is that Social Security is fucked as is. It's done. So, what the fuck? Yeah.
Glance, that almost sounds like a mildly coherent opinion if you don't think about it whatsoever. I mean, it's so egregious that one of two things is happening. Either they're just blatantly lying and they know that you're dumb, or two, there's this phenomenon that happens where you become so well educated that you've been detached from the rest of normal society outside of academia for so long that you no longer have any common sense. And I think that might actually be what's going on here. Now look, again, I can't stress this enough. Not a tax professional, not an economist, just a guy, but hear me out. What if we just spent less fucking money? You know, what if we bought and gave away a few less fucking missiles to other countries?
100% right. 100% right. He's gonna go into this probably even further. The United States is sending so much fucking money overseas. And people in the United States have been saying this for at least the last 2 decades, at minimum. The United States cannot continue to fund the rest of the planet, especially the rest of the planet's wars. We are how much money got sent to Haiti for relief? How much money is getting sent to Ukraine currently? The United States is sending money fucking everywhere and is impoverishing its own population because of this. That is one thing the United States does have to stop doing. At some point, the United States, and at some point, meaning right fucking now, or actually 10, 20 fucking years ago, needs to say, you started your shit, you need to fix your shit, we are not going to bail you out. That needed to happen 20 years ago. And at the same time, the United States needs to stop frivolously spending on its own shit. I remember seeing a clip from a congressional hearing where a congressman held up like a fucking washer that was used either for the space program or for the military. I think it might have been the military. Was like, had like a handful of washers. Simple washers. Where if you bought them from the same kind that you get at the hardware store. Where if you got them from the hardware store, it'd be like $15-20. The United States government was spending thousands, maybe tens of thousands, for those washers. Why? Why is the United States government spending tens of thousands of dollars on a bag of washers that should only cost them $20 or $30? Because some corporation got into a contract to get a kickback. Uh-huh. That's the other part.
I looked up the bills for those for Ukraine. We are sending our old supplies. That money is more used in approval to make new stuff for us.
In theory, Robo-Spartan, again, what I was just talking about with that congressional hearing, where they are grotesquely overspending on stuff in the US by a factor of 1,000 or more. So yeah, it's literally not just let's not spend less. It's like, okay, let's not spend so much fucking money on other countries. Like as egregiously. I'm not saying, bearing in mind, I'm not saying the United States should not help out other countries if they can. Like blanket statement. That's not what I'm saying at all. But the egregious level of spending needs to end. The United States can help out our other countries, even help them monetarily. But you can't just be throwing millions or billions of dollars at other countries to help them when they're not even going to help themselves. And at the same time, you can't be stealing from Peter to pay Paul internally either. Flat out. You nip those two things in the bud, that will go a long way to fixing the budget. But it won't happen. It's not going to happen because with the spending of other countries, for whatever fucking reason, the government's like, we have to throw this money at people, otherwise they're not going to. It's like the fucking the schizo the neurotic girl is like, if I don't do this, he's not gonna like me. I want him to like me, so if I don't do this, he's not gonna like me. It's that fucking neurotic girlfriend bullshit thing for the other countries, and for the internal shit, it's dirty dealings with corporations to basically fuck the American people so the corporations and the people in the government getting kickbacks get fucking filthy rich. This is why I've said before, the entire governmental machine needs to be rebuilt from the fucking ground up. Doctor, we're not talking about that. Stay on topic. Keep up. We're not talking Veilguard. Yeah, keep up here.
I feel like that's a good compromise.
No, I don't think I will.
No? Okay, we'll just move right on to the next argument then.
There aren't a lot of...
Given that the majority of money that exists on a digital scale and not backed by anything. So that means you can just make stuff up. After all, money is just a concept where we made the rules to begin with. Hot take.
Effectively speaking, yes. That's why the whole concept of inflation is a bit of bullshit, because most money is not paper. It is indeed digital. And so inflation now is primarily manufactured by the government as just, okay, this should cost more. And we're going to say it's inflation when everything is in a database somewhere. Yeah, you literally could, with the snap of a finger, kill inflation. 100%. It would be possible to kill inflation with the snap of a finger. Why wouldn't it? Because the US dollar would go down severely. Right now, the US dollar is held as basically the gold standard for currency around the world. If they made inflation go poof like that, it actually would likely, in the market, would likely devalue the United States dollar significantly. So that's where you would run into a major problem if you just poofed it. Well, you know what I'm saying, Space Butter. You know what I mean.
Of tipped workers in America.
No, wrong. Dragon Rider, wrong. Because the Canadian dollar right now is like 70 cents to the US dollar. The Canadian dollar is shit right now. In fact, let me hang on. Yeah. Yeah? It's 72 cents on the dollar. The Canadian dollar is shit. So, yeah, no, it's definitely not the I don't know about the euro, but I know that the Canadian dollar is doing terrible.
According to economist Ernie Tedeschi, tipped work accounts for just 2.5% of all employment.
Cool, I understand that most people aren't paid in tips, okay? I'm not rooting for this plan because I think it's gonna change the world on a grand scale. I'm rooting for the plan because I should be allowed to give the fucking delivery driver $10 without the government stepping in like the mafia and demanding their fucking cut.
It's been 24 hours. Got my money? Yeah, I don't have it, sorry. Well, all right then.
Oh god, I remember this episode of Family Guy. This was fucking brutal. Stewie went goddamn saw on Brian with this. He went fucking psycho. This was bad. This actually, I saw this episode and this made me uncomfortable. Like, really uncomfortable when I saw this.
That's good, OJ.
And then the next thing they go on to say with this argument as well, it could be really hard on businesses like restaurants because now the restaurant owner has to deal with the fact that some of his employees just got a tax cut and the people in the kitchen didn't get a tax cut, meaning the waiters effectively just got a raise and the cooking staff didn't, and then people might get mad and quit and it could end up ending their entire business. And this is the part where they're actually insulting your intelligence, right? I mean, you expect me to honestly believe that an entrepreneur that's smart enough to run a fucking business is gonna have the government approach them and be like, hey, I'm gonna take less money from your business. And the entrepreneur is just like, fuck, this is gonna put me under. Having more money is just fucking, I can't do it. It's not manageable.
I haven't cried like that since Titanic.
Okay, look, controversial opinion. I'm so hardcore capitalist that I wholeheartedly believe that if you're
Dubster, just because I'm from Chicago does not mean I'm a fucking gangster, okay? Seeing Stewie, like, obliterate Brian, because that scene is, like, literally 1% of what he did to Brian in that scene. Yes, it made me uncomfortable. Very.
your business goes under because the government steps in and says, hey, I'm gonna quit fucking over some of your employees. Literally, I'm gonna add more money to what your employees are receiving on a daily basis, and that's what fucking puts you out of business. I don't care, because you suck at being an entrepreneur and you deserve to go out of business at that point. I encourage the competition because I know there's other people out there that if the government stepped in and said, hey, I'm gonna take less money, they'd fucking figure it out. And the best part about this, that's not even the most offensive argument, okay? This is the most offensive argument.
Before he gets in the most offensive argument, Glitch Dragon, thank you for the follow and welcome.
So for example, if you took a delivery worker who delivered food, they probably get tips, and so they would qualify for this tax benefit. If you took a delivery worker who delivered packages, they usually don't, so they wouldn't get a tax benefit. I can't think of a good reason why you would want to give a tax break to the person who delivers food, but not to the person who delivers mail.
Okay, to compare a pizza delivery driver to a fucking UPS driver is absolutely fucking insane, okay? It doesn't make any...
Fucking what? Okay. I will point out the stupidity of this, even though there is an excellent chance that Nick is going to say exactly what I'm about to say here. Delivery drivers actually make a wage, like a decent wage. I would say the average delivery driver, and people in the US, you're gonna know this better than me, but I would say a typical like UPS or US postal worker wage is somewhere in the neighborhood of what? Starting at 17 to 18 bucks an hour? At a guess, I don't know for sure. I'm not sure what the average wage there is. Like 17, 18 bucks an hour would be my guess, is what the average wage of a delivery driver is. Server wages are $3 an hour. That is what the standard wage for a server is. $3 an hour. And it's $3 an hour because they are a tip-based system in their business. They count on the tips to make up for the lack of wage. Okay, so I was very low for the delivery drivers. Okay, like I said, I don't know what the wage, I wasn't sure what the wage would look like in America. That's why I took an extremely rough guess. You're saying it's like 41 bucks an hour, 56 bucks an hour, something like that. So they're actually making a decent salary. Servers are making absolute dog shit salary because they're because they're in an industry that is literally reliant upon tips. They are reliant upon that to make a living wage, and they barely do that. So trying to equate delivery drivers with wait staff is fucking stupid. Absolutely fucking stupid, and shows that you do not understand basic goddamn economics. That's why I'm saying they make like $3 an hour. Is there like the last wage I heard for the last standard wage for a server that I heard was $3 an hour. Maybe that's changed since I heard that number, but that's what I heard last was $3 an hour with the difference being made up in tips to bring it up to minimum wage. And the way it works with tip-based employment is if you don't make enough tips to make minimum wage, by the end of your pay period, the employer kicks in the remainder so you have made at least minimum wage. So someone trying to argue the difference here someone trying to say, oh, it's not fair to do this to the servers, but not to the delivery drivers, you're a fucking idiot. And you obviously, I don't know if you think you're an economist, you do not understand basic goddamn economics, if that is your opinion. You need to get a refund on your fucking diploma and maybe go to a trade school instead. Because that might be a little bit more your speed.
Any sense. It's on par with being like, well, we don't want to give CNAs a tax cut because then we're not going to give doctors a tax cut, and they're basically the same job. They both just walk around the fucking hospital wearing pajamas, right? No, one of them is paid significantly more than the other for performing more complex fucking tasks, okay? A UPS driver on average makes $27 an hour.
Okay, you said $23.17 for UPS. And that in Iowa, it's 27. So I was kind of close on my first guess. On my first guess, I was kind of close.
With wages going as high as $43 an hour, on top of 18 paid holidays and sick days, 7 weeks of vacation, and industry-leading fucking healthcare. The pizza delivery guy's making $7 to $13 an hour with no fucking benefits whatsoever. If no tax on tips goes into effect, there's 0 fucking UPS drivers that are gonna quit their job and go work for Pizza Hut. Also, I lied. That was actually the second most offensive argument. The most offensive argument is this.
Let's say I'm a salesperson that gets a commission commission. Or let's say that I'm somebody on Wall Street that gets a year-end bonus. So I reclassify my commission as a tip, or I reclassify my year-end bonus as a tip. The employer helps out because they'll get a benefit, and so everybody wins.
Okay, this is...
You can't fucking do that. In that industry, you cannot reclassify a bonus coming from your employer as a fucking tip. That is illegal. It's not possible for you to do that, you fucking moron, you goddamn troglodyte. Does this fucking moron think that these Wall Street people just make up shit on the fly and ignore law and say, you know what, I don't like the law telling me this, so I'm just gonna say this is a tip, and it's all good, right? To absolute fucking blunderbuss of a man. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, yes, I understand Wall Street just makes shit up as they go, but an end-of-the-year bonus does not come from a person. It does not come in the form of a tip. An end-of-the-year bonus comes from your fucking boss for doing a good job. It is on your paycheck. You cannot just say, oh, that's a tip. You absolute dunderhead. You as well need to go and get a refund for your diploma. And I don't know, go out for a children's entertainment industry if you have this kind of imagination. Go work for Barney the dinosaur, because that's about the speed for you. Since you have this grandiose imagination that people can just take bonuses and magically turn them into tips, you're gonna fit right at home on the set of Barney. Or the Teletubbies. That's about the only place that you're gonna that I think your brain is capable of operating at. Fucking hell, maybe this guy was brought up on Cocomelon. That would explain it. If this guy was brought up on Cocomelon, that would explain his absolute lack of brain power.
Blatantly taking advantage of the fact that most Americans don't really understand how taxes and income works, and they don't really know how to read their W-2, okay? You can't just go to your fucking employer and be like, hey, Jim, I thought about this. I'd rather my salary get converted from normal income to tips. Hardy har har har. That's not how any of that fucking works. And if you don't believe me, go to your boss tomorrow and be like, hey, boss, I've thought about this a lot, and I would really appreciate it if on my W-2, you changed all the wages I've earned and told the IRS that those were capital gains, because capital gains are taxed far less than normal wages. You want to know what your boss is going to tell you? No, because that's fucking tax fraud. You want to know why? Because the IRS has very clear definitions of what earned wages are and what capital gains are. They also have a very clear definition of what a tip is. From the IRS, tips are discretionary, optional, or extra payments determined by the customer that employees receive from customers. So a salesperson receiving a commission, not a fucking tip. So a CEO getting a bonus at the end of the year, not a fucking tip. Like the one time the government is actually trying to give a tax cut to lower income working people, they come out swinging with the lies of, well, this tax cut's actually only gonna affect the rich because the rich will just fucking
What they're doing is they're doing these sound bites on TV because the people watching these news programs don't know tax law. To them, it's a bunch of gobbledygook that they're counting on the average taxpayer not to fucking understand, so they can try and railroad something through to fuck them over, because you have a supposed smart person on TV telling you, oh yeah, this is how this works, when it's a fucking lie. So it's basically just, It's a fucking shell game. This is just a paid for shell game on the quote unquote dumb public. That's all it is.
Magically turn all their income into tips is fucking nonsense. Okay, I'm calm. Now, to be completely fair and intellectually honest, there was one good argument that these economists managed to come up with, and that was that if you don't tax tips, you kind of end up incentivizing it in a way, and you're going to help prop up tipping culture even more than it already is. And a lot of people don't like tipping culture in America and wish it would just go away. Which, you know what, to be fair, actually a great argument, right? Because we all feel that way, especially recently, because now they fucking whip the iPad around when you're like picking up your own pizza. It's not being delivered. They still want a 20% tip. Get the fuck out of here, right? Don't get me wrong. I don't mind tipping.
Fuck, they do it at retail stores when you go through the self-checkout. I think Walmart was trying to do that, where they were trying to get you to, when you go through self-checkout at Walmart in the States, they try to get you to do a fucking tip. Yeah, it's like, literally, they're trying to get you to tip fucking everywhere. Especially in places that it makes no goddamn sense. Where you do not even speak to an employee, and they still want you to tip. It's like, go and fuck yourself. I'm not questioning whether I'm going to patronize your establishment ever again. Because that tip is not going to an employee. That tip is going to the corporation. The employee will never see that tip.
I'll tip the waiter, the waitress, the delivery driver. I'll tip my tattoo artist. I'll tip my hairstylist. I mean, my wife does my hair, so her tip's a little bit different. But the point remains.
Go Nick. Go Nick. Yeah, go Nick.
Okay, I don't mind giving out tips when you're actually doing something. But at the same time, it is a weird cultural norm that seemingly only America has in modern times, and it is kind of dumb, and if we got rid of it, it wouldn't hurt my feelings one bit. However, the notion that the government should step in and tax it to decentivize tips is also complete fucking nonsense. Because guess what? If you actually do want to get rid of tips, one way to guarantee that you never ever achieve your goal is to allow the government to keep taxing them, making $150 billion, because then they're never going to get rid of it because they're making all the money off of it.
I still question that number for $100 billion. I still seriously question that fucking number, that's how much the government is taking in taxes from tips. I still don't buy that. Not even close. I would question if it was even half that amount. I would say at most, the government is receiving $100 million from the combined taxation of tips. Robosborn, I don't even think it'll be 500 million. I think it's 100 million. Hello, McCargo Pass. How are you? Yeah, I would wager 500 million. I think is too much. I think it's probably closer to like 100, maybe 200 million for the tips. Because remember, they're taxing $2. They're taxing $5. They're taxing $10. They're not taxing large dollar amounts. No, I'm not going to quick math it. No, I'm not.
It's not fair.
You're learning. Uh-oh. Capital gains tax.
Okay, this is gonna be a tough pill to swallow. You might not like this opinion, but guess what? If you don't like tipping, don't tip. It's 100% voluntary. You don't have to do it, okay? And guess what? If you get enough people that quit tipping, it'll just go the fuck away and the problem is solved, okay? That's the answer. The answer is not, I don't like tipping, therefore I'm gonna root for taxes, okay? That's completely fucking absurd. Oh, but maybe if the government taxes me more, I'll finally get free healthcare or public schools will be better. No, the government's never gonna fucking make public schools better or give you free healthcare, okay? They're gonna take your money, they're gonna buy missiles, and they're gonna shoot them at poor people in countries that you don't know how to spell. Okay, don't get this twisted. I don't like that. I'm not rooting for it. I think it sucks. However, my point is, if you're advocating that the government should tax tips so that they can divert like a third of that money over to healthcare or education or whatever you think is important, hear me out. What if you just did that? What if you took all of the money that you were gonna tip that person and you donated it to the local school instead? You could solve the problem way better than the government ever can. Quit letting the government and the news gaslight you into rooting for fucking taxes.
Yes.
And apparently apparently on this instance, it's not even the government. Literally, the Republican candidate and the Democratic candidate are on the same page, and it's just the news trying to gaslight you into taxes.
And it wouldn't have mattered who won because both of them would have gone back on that the moment they hit office. Let's not bullshit. They both may have said it, they both lied. Because I guarantee you, that is going to be forgotten about in the next couple months. Guaranteed.
Which makes no sense to me. Anyways, I gotta go before I give myself a heart attack. Sorry this was so unhinged, but thank you for watching. Quack bang, out. Seriously, am I the only person that feels this way? Because reading the news headlines in the comment sections kind of makes me feel like I am.
Oh, goodness.
Call me crazy, but if I remember history correctly, wasn't the IRS supposed to end after the Civil War expense was paid along with income taxes after WW2 was paid, G? I can't think of why they are still around.
Revan, I do not know. I'm not that familiar with it, so alas, I don't have an answer.